Good evening. We're glad that you're here this evening, one of the last beautiful summer evenings of 2019. And we're glad you're willing to spend it with us. We would like to start this meeting as we've done many times with roll call. Please, Kathy.
Byrd.
Present.
Peters. Here. Garcia.
Here.
Trethewey.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Corbin.
Here.
Hoekstra.
Here.
Klumparns.
Here.
Mayor DeBoer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Kathy. Then we're going to do a couple things that we have done traditionally for decades. We're going to have an opening prayer led by our city manager, Keith Van Beek, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. We would love it if you would join us by standing. Half of you already are. And if you're able, thank you.
If you desire, please join me in prayer. Gracious Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this community that you have entrusted these officials to help govern. We ask for your wisdom and your hand on those that are making decisions tonight, that they are imparted with your wisdom and your grace, and that they do that which is best for all citizens of this community. We ask also for your protection over those that protect this community. We think especially of our first responders. Thank you for those things that you've blessed this community with. It's in your name that we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Keith. And we will go on to the consent agenda. This will be a reading of several items that are already on the agenda that we will work to handle with one vote as a council. But perhaps something on the consent agenda is a reason you came down here tonight. And if that's the case, at the end of the reading of the consent agenda, we'll open it up and you can come forward to the podium, give us your name and address, and tell us which item you would like pulled from the consent agenda. So could you read that for us, please, Kathy?
First off, we're making note that item 12E, 6.7, and 17A are being removed from the agenda. 4B, to approve the minutes of the September 4th, 2019 regular meeting. 4C, to accept and file executed oaths of office from various boards and commissions. 12A1, to approve the final settlement agreement and associated amendment to the 2010 power purchase agreement with North American Natural Resources. 12A2, to approve 3 grant of utility easements on properties at 807 Pine Ave, 85 West 34th Street, and 79 West 34th Street, pending signatures from property owners. 12A3, to approve the abandonment of an existing easement with Holland Public Schools at the former Harrington Elementary School, pending city attorney approval. 12D1, to refer claims filed against the city to the city's insurance carrier and city attorney for consideration. 12D2, to adopt a resolution recognizing Lighthouse Immigrant Associates as a nonprofit organization operating in the city of Holland. 12D3, to adopt a resolution approving the redevelopment district liquor license request for Crest 54, located at 45 East 8th Street, and that the clerk's office forward approval to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. 12E 2.1, to approve the updated covenant with the Centennial Inn. 12E 4.1, to accept the July 2019 monthly financial reports as presented. 12E 4.2, to approve the Clear Heights construction bid for the replacement of the covering for the Celebration Pavilion in the amount of $41,440 to be funded through the fiscal year 2020 Windmill Island Gardens budget, subject to approval as to form by the city attorney. 12E 6.4, to approve a revocable license agreement with Bean and Decock Properties for the installation of a projecting sign at Engedi Salon, 10 West 8th Street. 12E 6.5, to approve the bid for a wage and classification study to HR Collaborative in the amount of $31,800 and amend the Human Resources fiscal year 20 budget by $6,800.
Thank you, Kathy. Now, perhaps one of those items was something of a lot of importance to you, and if that's the case, please come to the podium and give us your name and address and which item you would like pulled from that consent agenda. Seeing none, on to council. Would anyone like to pull something off of consent? Seeing none, we need a motion.
Motion to adopt agenda as presented. Support.
Moved by Trethewey, supported by Byrd. Could you please call the roll, Kathy?
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Corbin, Hoekstra,
Yes.
Klomparns,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So one of the exciting things for this evening is the welcoming of high school students to the chambers, and really the high school students to all the work of City Hall. Holland, as a city, has really worked hard to include people of all ages, and way back, I think it was in Mayor McGeehan's tenure as mayor, they instituted the Holland Youth Advisory Council, which is like a high school city council, so that we could have feedback on the high school level as we thought about issues, and we had students involved in youth on boards as well. So it's a wonderful program. We so appreciate all the students that take time of their super busy schedule to be a part of what happens at the city. And so we have someone to introduce them. Joan will come forward as our liaison and our staff member who helps us with that. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Joan McCluskey. I am the Holland Youth Advisory Council Coordinator. It is my pleasure to introduce local Holland scholars joining the Holland Youth Advisory Council for the 2019-2020 school year. The members of the Holland Youth Advisory Core Council are Riley Schuff, Carly Caldell, Diego Felix Trejo, Abigail Mulder, Josh Laux, Esley Mendoza, Madison Allen, Mariel Vanderscher, Danielle Vorak, Wyatt Unk, Ryan Lindberg, Diamante Belcazar, and Andrew Key. Members of the Social Services Committee are Sarah Brown, Lydia Foy, Audrey Luce, Emma Sanders, Andrew Key, Wyatt Unk, Ashan Rajani, and Evan Gross. Recreational Committee members are Andrea Essenberg, Catherine Wang, Braden Griffin, Emily Johnson, Selena Vasquez, Ryan Lindberg, Jackie Roman, Maya Cooper, Greta Davis, and Annika Williams. The Environmental Committee consists of Ellen I., Stellan Goodrich, Duncan Camera Hagemeyer, Audrey Van Heis, Danielle Vorak, Hadley Vandevussi, Samantha Fenema, Lily Sharp, and Jay Woo Han. And on the Holland Youth on Boards, Abigail Mulder sits on the Human Relations Commission, Carly Caldell sits on the Neighborhood Improvement Commission, T.J. Vreeman on the Parks and Recreation Commission, Diego Felix Trejo also on the Parks and Recreation Commission, Claire Balser on Police and Community Relations Commission, Dylan Brower on Teen Court, Diamante Balcazar also on Teen Court. Mariel Vanderscher sits on the International Relations Committee, Ethan Meyer on the Sustainability Committee, Riley Schuff on Maxit Transit, Josh Laux on Sustainability, Madison Allen, on Planning Commission, Esley Mendoza on Historic District Planning Commission, and Hannah Huggett on Sustainability Committee. Please join us in welcoming the 2019-2020 Holland Youth Advisory Council.
And students, could you come up and stand? If your name was read, please come and face the audience so that they can see the breadth and depth of the high school representation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody needs a picture. Thank you. We appreciate Esther Fafelsky as the chair of that department, Human Relations Department, and we really appreciate Joan McCluskey as the one staff member that works directly with these students throughout the year. And we so appreciate all the parents who have built into the lives of these young people for them to have a sense of responsibility for their community and a willingness to serve the community beyond what they're already doing in school. And we know that that is going to lay a strong foundation for this community and in each of their lives. So thank you all so much for being here this evening. Thank you, students. And I think students and their parents are excused to refreshments in the rotunda if you'd like. Thank you. Feel free to find a place of repose after somebody left. Next, we are going to take a moment to think about Van Raalte Farm, which is an amazing asset that the city purchased quite a few years ago, 60 acres of beautiful area with our founder's son's house. Carolina Marquis was on the Parks and Recreation Board when we first got connected, and we both shared a passion for helping to remember Van Raalte and his amazing gifts to our community. So, Carolina, I wondered if you would like to give us a little feedback on what has happened about Van Raalte Farm.
I would. Do you want me to turn this?
That's fine, yeah.
We can do this. Oh. Let Nancy do this. She's done this before. I'll just turn it around.
There you go. Okay, that's the best we can do. You have to hold it.
Hold it. All right. Okay. Oh, I need my glasses. All right. All righty. There we go. All right.
I'll hold it for you.
Okay. Madam Mayor, councilmen, and members of the audience. Tonight, it's my honor to feature the restoration and preservation of the Van Raalte Farm as a prelude to the Van Raalte Farm Civil War muster on this Saturday and this Sunday, the 21st and 22nd. We will engage in time travel back to the 1860s as you view photos of the Van Raalte home. We've come to thank 14 people, businesses, who have generously donated furniture, mattresses, pillows, rugs, valances, antique china, accessories, all valued at $13,880. And others have donated hours of labor preparing for the home tours, small meetings, educational events, and weddings that we plan to hold at this facility. Previously, we have honored Dave Mishila, who is the owner of Carpet Bonanza, and he gave us carpets and runners, and the value was $4,653. Repco Light was our very first donor, and they gave us wallpaper for the living and dining rooms valued at $1,200, and Benjamin Moore Paints gave us paints for the exterior of the house, the siding, the trim, the shutters, and that was valued at $2,000. The City of Holland has restored the house porch for $30,000, and $85,000 went to the restoration of the Gray Barn. This is a grand project embraced by so many who love history.
Also, I want to thank the Parks Department, the crew who toiled restoring the original white pine floors for weeks and weeks, scraping up glued linoleum and old carpet, and then they sanded and sealed the beautiful floors. Ben Venralti would be so happy to see those floors looking just like they did when he built the home. So when you look at these pictures, you will see the floors, so be sure and notice those as well. Holland is known for our wonderful parks, the lovely, unique, and extraordinary parks that we have. Centennial Park is our signature Victorian park in the historic district. Collin Park is our waterfront park with our boardwalk, and Windmill Island, it has our Deswan iconic historic windmill, the only Dutch windmill that has ever been placed outside of the Netherlands. Our largest park, as Nancy said, is 160 acres, the Van Raalte Farm. And this weekend, we will have our 11th muster. It is designated by the state of Michigan and also by the National Park Service as an historic property. It's a natural property on the corner of 16th Street and Country Club Road. It's got trails and sledding hill, urban forestry, a stream and boardwalk, and a 400-year-old hickory tree. It's situated in the northeast corner is this beautiful Italianate revival home of Ben Van Raalte, which you see there on the monitor. Reverend Van Raalte was a Republican and a huge supporter of President Lincoln in 1860 as America was mired in the tragic Civil War. Reverend Van Raalte wanted to help Lincoln when he called for 76,000 volunteers to come and save the Union. So he sent his two sons, Ben and his brother Dirk. They were 22 and 18, just boys. And he asked 400 of Holland's young men to go and please save the Union. I can't imagine what these young boys were thinking. Many of them had just come to America. They had adopted America as their home, and here they were marching through the South. They didn't speak English, many of them. They wrote home in Dutch, and here they were trying to save the Union. But fortunately, Ben and Dirk were spared, and they came home in 1865 to lead successful lives. Ben was a successful farmer at the farm, and he was a farm implements dealer. Ben built 2 barns in 1865 and the home in 1872. For 11 years, we have produced this free Civil War reenactment on the farm, but this is the first year that we have opened the house to full tours. So we have living room, dining room, and 3 bedrooms. Since the city began restoring the home in 2015, we have been finishing restoration projects every year, and every year the home is better and better at preserving the heritage residents. So we have these lovely appreciation certificates for the 14 recipients, and on the monitor we will show you the donations. So many of the people who come to see the farm say, what can we do to help? For example, John Van Raalte, we need the, there we go. John Van Raalte, who is a descendant, asked, how can I help? And I said, write a big check. He was thrilled to give us these twin Baker beds made for Dr. Carl Van Raalte, who was a dentist in Holland for 40 years. These Baker beds were made in Allegan, probably 75 to 85 years ago. The feet were broken and shattered, and so I went to Evergreen Commons carpentry shop, and I met Adrian Van Houten, whose father worked for Baker, and he taught his son well. Aid was the only person who said, I can fix those feet, and I would be honored to do so. His wife told me he's a genius at doing this. Then I went to Bice Mattress and asked Mark Dozeman, and he came to the farm and did a little tour, and he said, I want to make you brand new mattresses for the twin beds, and he did that. And then I wrote to Mike Lindell, the My Pillow company owner. You've seen his.
She goes anywhere.
You've seen his commercials. And I told him I valued his principled business ethic, and I knew he was an entrepreneurial genius, and so I knew that he might help us out. And by the way, Holland has been named by Wallet Hub under Mayor DeBoer's leadership as the best city in which to begin a new business for 4 years in a row, and I thought he would appreciate this. And Nancy said she's actually talked to him on the phone. So pretty soon, I asked him for 6 pillows, and I saw this huge box on my porch, and I thought, what is that? I just couldn't believe how big it was. He sent us 12 pillows. And so you can see them in the photo. There they are. So, yeah, so we can give those.
All right. Adrian, we have a certificate for you. Here we are. This is to Adrian Van Houten for your contribution to preserve and restore the historic farmhouse, 1872, and the barns, built by Benjamin Van Raalte, son of Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, founder of Holland. Thank you so much.
Nancy was hoping that Mr. Lindell would come, but he didn't make it.
So much.
Yeah. So next we have Dar and Craig Kleinexel. Now, Dar should be living in 1776 Williamsburg because she is an aficionado of the Revolutionary War and the 18th century America. She and Craig live right across the street in a Williamsburg home that I get to look at every day. Rick Veenhoven, her cousin, is the executive director of the Civil War muster, and he and I have been trying to bring her into the 1860s, and we succeeded. So she is volunteering at the muster this year, and she has donated these items. So I want you to come to the tour to learn about the slipper chairs. You can see the slipper chairs, and you need to know what slipper chairs are. She also is giving us a sewing machine and a little chest, and she's giving us a dress and a beautiful rocker. So she really got into the 1860s, and we so appreciate that.
Mainly because I don't think any of my kids would appreciate any of this stuff when we're gone, so I want to make sure it lives on. I know it
thank
will
you.
at the Van Raalte home.
Wow. Yeah, this is wonderful for Dar and Craig Kleinheck, so we really appreciate your contribution to help and preserve and restore the historic farmhouse and barns built by Benjamin Van Raalte and son of Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, the founder of Holland. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Number 3, we have Sue Leitner Smith. She has donated 2 chests and a spinning wheel, and these came from the Leitners who lived in Pennsylvania, Dutch country in Pennsylvania, and that they're not Dutch, they're German. But if you recognize Sue's name, she and Ray have their names on the Hope College football stadium, and Sue was my neighbor for 25 years.
Sue, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Sue, and yours is also for a contribution to preserve and restore the historic farmhouse and barns built by Benjamin Van Raalte, son of Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, the founder of Holland. Thank you, Sue.
And number 4, I have Cynthia Armstrong. Cynthia is family. Her daughter, my daughter, married her son. And she has what I call the magical attic because she has so many things stored in there. One of them is a Civil War uniform that she's thinking about giving to us, but here is a slipper chair. She was the first slipper chair, and if you come to the farm, you'll find out what a slipper chair is, and this is in our living room.
Thank you. So Cynthia Armstrong for a contribution to preserve and restore the historic farmhouse and barns built by Benjamin Van Raalte, son of Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, the founder of Holland. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Next is Jean Hampson. Jean owns Stonegate Antiques and has been an antique dealer for many years. She and her husband Bob had this wonderful store out on South Shore Drive, and she gave me this very interesting cradle. It's called a field cradle. I've never seen anything like it. It's handmade, and if you come to the tour, we'll tell you all about it. And then there's also this sweet chair that is by the desk. So Jean?
Thank you for Jean Hansen, who has done this contribution to preserve and restore the historic farmhouse and barns built by Benjamin Van Raalte, son of Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, the founder of Holland. Really appreciate your generosity, Jean.
And next is Carolyn Stitch. She is Holland's beloved artist who is an educator and a generous donor to many Holland causes. She won the Tulip Time poster competition in 2019 with the poster Enduring Delft. But we asked her to paint a picture of the farmhouse with the barns, which she did and gave it to us, and we are now selling note cards that we have made of this beautiful painting. I don't think she could be here tonight, but we are so appreciative of Carolyn. Next, the next two families couldn't come because somebody was celebrating a birthday. Emily and John Hopp, and Emily has helped us before. She made the curtains, the Dutch lace curtains, in the living room and dining room. But they have now given us a china cabinet and a buffet. They were made in Holland for DBK Jr. So DBK was Ben's brother, and his name was Dirk Blickman Kickert, and the family calls him DBK. He was Ben's nephew. And this furniture was made at the Charles Limbert Furniture Company that used to be at the corner of 6th and College in 1922. These are one-of-a-kind pieces made expressly for DBK's home on 11th Street, and the Hopps live there now. So anyway, they wanted to give both of those pieces. There was a table, but that was sold when they moved in. So we are thrilled to have Van Raalte furniture, one of a kind. And then Emily has just made 6 valances for the bedrooms. So we're going to put those up tomorrow. And then Sue and John Hutchinson, this is Emily's mother, could not come because John's celebrating his birthday tonight. But they have given many pieces, this little chest that's in the bedroom, and you can come and find out what that was. Also a lamp, a Ralph Lauren rug, Vaseline ware, a china chocolate set, a china fruit set, antique quilts and pillowcases are on loan, and the two of them have both spent a lot of time in prep work at the house. So I wish they could have been here, but they're having a wonderful birthday dinner. So anyway, we are encouraging you to come to the muster. We will have 150 reenactors in full uniform and costumes where you can meet President Lincoln and Generals Lee and Grant and Meade and Stewart and Jackson and Miss Sojourner Truth. We're fighting the battles of Spotsylvania in Virginia and Yellow Tavern. There will be cavalry skirmishes and heavy artillery. Come to the Emerald Saloon. And you also can find yummy food like bean soup and Johnny Cake and apple crisp. So I guarantee you, you will be transported back to the 1860s. You can smell the campfires and you can stroll through the camps. It's really magical. And so I want to thank Mayor DeBoer for her steadfast commitment to preserving and restoring the farm. Over 15 years, she has been an advocate for teaching history at the farm. We have an education day on Friday before the Saturday and Sunday, and we have 500 students come out. They're fifth graders, and we teach them all about the Civil War, what it was like to be on the march. They see our reenactors, they hear Civil War music, they meet the President, Lincoln, they meet Generals Lee and Grant, and they really have never seen, I don't think, living history like this with all the people dressed as they were in the time. So anyway, Nancy, your leadership has been invaluable in moving these farm projects forward. She always takes my phone calls. She always answers my texts. It's wonderful, and she's such a leader and a friend. And Holland's parks and businesses greatly prosper because she values and promotes the quality of life for us all.
Thank you, Carolyn. We have one more award that you may not be aware of. No. This one is for the City of Holland, Michigan, and recognizes and appreciates Carolina Marquis for her dedicated vision to preserve and restore the historic farmhouse and barn built by Benjamin Van Raalte and Reverend Albertus Christian Van Raalte, founder of Holland. If it weren't for you, Carolina, none of these changes would have happened. We would still have pink woodwork and rotten carpet nailed to the floor and dripping candle wax on the top shelves and interns in the bedrooms, and it would not be the place that it is today, a showcase that honors our founder and makes it accessible and inspires the reenactors that will come here this weekend so that they can learn more about this authentic place that housed an actual Civil War veteran and his family and live in the woods that surrounded his place and watch the battles and learn about the moral stand that our founder took in sending his sons to fight for a union they had just joined. So we are very grateful as a community for all your work inspiring so many to give of whatever they have and to be inspired to continue to be a part of this whole journey to restore our founder's son's home and his property. So thank you so much, Carolina. And now we have a Civil War muster little video that shows us what they did last year on the 10th anniversary of the Civil War muster, so you know what's coming.
This year in particular was special because it's our 10th anniversary.
Civil War reenacting does a real service by helping people understand more clearly what the material nature of life in the Civil War armies was like.
I think each year they learn how to do it better and better, so from the reenactor's perspective, it's been getting better and better every year.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say.
I am portraying a surgeon. His father gave him a little vial of poison. Well, hopefully nobody passes out. Okay, I think I found it. They maybe don't have all of the training that modern physicians have today, and but they're using the training they had, and they're learning as the battle and as the war progresses.
There's a lot of different activities that they can see, learn a lot, and just have fun.
Well, it's about bringing history to life. It's about giving people an experience, a small taste of what life was like during the Civil War.
Battle is an environment with a particular kind of smell, of sight, of sound, and reenacting is one important way of helping to recapture that immediate experience of the face of battle that you can't really get any other way.
Many of those who participate in the reenactment group, they do it as a family hobby as well. They're very passionate about the educational component.
I actually saw some reenactors in Centennial Park, and so I started talking to them, and they told me about the hobby. I thought that would be a really great thing to do with my family.
We're all out here for one reason, that's really to educate the public and share our love and passion for history.
We had the most number of students that attended our education day, which was close to 700 students.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of fun.
These folks also come on their own nickel because of the passion that they have for it.
Life as a soldier in the 19th century was not an easy task. You marched hundreds and hundreds of miles. The Van Raalte brothers, for instance, in the 25th Michigan, they literally have to walk from here to Tennessee, to Mississippi, through Georgia.
And it's important to educate folks and to remind folks of those sacrifices.
You're trying to experience some of the emotions that those guys would have experienced, to say what was it like to really, be facing at a guy who's pointing a rifle at you.
They were human. They lived, and they had the same hopes and dreams that I think all of us had. Some of them were cut short because of conflict.
We got a line, we got a line, we got a line!
I think it's important not only to learn from them, but to honor them for what they did.
They can't speak for themselves anymore, but their documents, the artifacts, how we try to live when we're out here at these reenactments kind of help to tell that story.
Fire!
But the good thing about a reenactment is that at the very end, after all the powder has been burned and all the maneuvering has taken place, everyone gets to get up and shake hands and go home and have a good dinner, and it's peace. That peace was bought by the people that this reenactment honors.
Thank you, Matt. That was produced by our video crew here at the city, and they were awarded, I believe, for that video. It was so well done. So thank you so much, Carolina, and all those that came here for your recognition this evening. We can't thank you enough for your help in helping us to restore the Van Raalte home. So thank you. So now we have to move to a special order of the day with public hearings. We want to first of all start with a report from staff about our downtown parking operations and maintenance assessment. So we'll have Amy Sasamoto, our DDA person, to tell us about that. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. The first assessment is the downtown parking operation and maintenance assessment. This includes any properties within 400 feet of a public parking lot in the area bounded by 5th Street on the north, Columbia Avenue on the east, 11th Street on the south, and Pine Avenue on the west. It includes 153 properties. The assessment rate is .3639 per square foot, and we are assessing at the 3639, a 3% increase over last year's assessment, and we are expected to raise $246,105 in net assessment, which goes towards maintaining the public parking.
Thank you, Amy. Now we are opened for our public hearing, so if anyone is here and had came to talk about this assessment, please make your way to the podium. You need your name and address, and you're free to address council for 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we will close that public hearing, and then we need a motion from council.
Will we adopt a resolution?
Moved by Hoekstra,
Support.
supported by Trethewey. Any discussion? Could you call the roll, please, Kathy?
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Klomparens,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters, Mayor DeBoer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we move on to the Downtown Principal Shopping District Assessment. That's our marketing of downtown, which is another assessment that the downtown property owners pay. Could you explain that to us, Kara?
Yes, so the Principal Shopping District is dedicated to enhancing downtown Holland as a whole by actively promoting our district and our businesses through special events and marketing efforts. Specific promotions include the publications of maps, brochures, and guides, websites and social media marketing, print, digital, and radio advertising, public relations, business advocacy, training workshops, and special events like Girlfriends Weekend, Street Performer Series, sidewalk sales, live mannequin night, and our upcoming Fall Fest. The PSD assessment policy, as approved by City Council, is based on building square footage. The assessment rates for fiscal year 2020 are proposed to remain the same as they were for FY19. For core first floor properties, this is 22 cents a square foot. 14 cents a square foot for upper floor businesses in our core district, and 14 cents a square foot for basement level retail or restaurant properties. The proposed FY20 assessment includes 176 properties and will generate $212,592.96 in revenue for the PSD.
Thank you, Kara. So perhaps someone came to address that assessment. If you would like to talk about the Principal Shopping District assessment, make your way to the podium, give us your name and address, and you would have 5 minutes to address us about that topic. Seeing none, we'll close that public comment and move to council. Do we have?
Motion to adopt resolution.
Moved by Trethewey,
Support.
supported by Byrd. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Kathy.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Klomparns,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we're on to our snow melt operations and maintenance assessment. We have Amy back up again. Could you please give us that report?
Yes. The snow melt assessments are levied against any properties that receive the direct or incremental benefit from the snow melt system. And as we have 687,783 square feet of snow melt, of that portion, 664,520 is assessed at the rate of 48 cents per the policy adopted last year. So we are expected to raise on that assessment $318,969.58.
No such thing as a free lunch or a free snow melt, is there? Somebody's paying for it. Okay, so perhaps you came down to address us about the snow melt assessment. If that's the case, please make your way to the podium, give us your name and address, and again, you would have 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close that public hearing and move to council. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Moved by Trethewey,
Support.
supported by Hoekstra. Any discussion? Yes, Mike.
Just one little note on this. If you do the math, the 48 cents along with the square footage does not come out to the amount that was listed. The explanation that was given upstairs, which is very reasonable, is that some of the non-library property, some of the frontage was taken off. So there is a deduct of about $12,000 from that amount, which I believe future reports are going to reflect that, so it's a little bit easier to read. But that's, if somebody does the math on that, there isn't a mistake. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Mike. Did you have something, Raul? No. Oh, Wayne.
Yeah, just a big thank you to all the individuals and businesses that support these to make our downtown a wonderful place. The snow melt, the parking, the free parking, the great shopping, the great asset to our community. It's every time you go downtown, somebody again is paying for something, and a big thank you to all those people.
Yeah. So these are all assessments on top of regular property taxes. And nobody came upset about it, so that's amazing that they are so willing to do that. Could you please call the roll, Kathy?
Lynn,
Yes.
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Klomparns,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we're to the public comment section, and this is the point where anybody can address us about anything unless what you're concerned about is later in the agenda. So if it's something coming later that we're going to be voting on, then don't come to the podium. But if it isn't, you are welcome. And I think you probably know it's a green light to go, a yellow light when there's 1 minute left, and red light when the 5 minutes are up.
My name is Annette Manuel, 964 Vassar Avenue, City of Holland. I understand that I only have 5 minutes, but I've planned a brief demonstration this evening. I was here last week listening to the study session, and the reason I've come tonight is because back in 2011 and 2012, I have the unique ability to say that I was the only other person who was consistently in this room, consistently in that room, listening as the council discussed renters and rental properties in the city. So last week I listened as people tried to say it was a a trend that we were pushing renters out of the city because of a trend. That's not true. There were times in that room where I was the only renter in there. I looked around the room. I know everybody here owns a house. I was the only renter. I was the only renter who listened. Well, renters are bad. Renters don't take care of their properties. We don't want renters in this city. Everything was said to limit the number of people who could live in one unit. We limited multi-unit housing. We limited the number of rentals in the city. We purposely took homes that were duplexes and turned them back into owner-occupied homes. It was hard for me to listen while people were getting patted on the back for the work that's being done now when I sat here as a renter and listened while the city pushed renters out. I knew the council was screwing up then because when I moved here 8 years ago, rentals were scarce. The second problem last week is that you tried to say that only landlords and people from other states are, raising the rents. That's not true. That's not true at all. My landlord lives in the city of Holland. My property management company is in Park Township. They're bleeding me dry, and they know it. According to Ryan Kilpatrick's chart, I am paying $225 too much just in my rent. That doesn't include my utilities. You add that in, I'm paying $350 too much a month in housing costs. That's me. I am an educated adult. I moved here purposely. I want to live in this city, but I can't. What could I do with that $350? I could buy a car. I could replace my 15-year-old car that has 263,000 miles on it, but I can't do that. I could maybe save for retirement. I can't do that either. I could maybe save for my son's future, but I can't do that either. And this isn't something, you guys don't deserve pats on the back right now because you screwed up. You screwed up. We need housing in this town, and we need it now. We needed it 8 years ago. This is not a renter-friendly place. People speak to me about things because they know they can trust me, and I'm telling you, we're getting to the point right now that if you want to see these popping up around the city, you will. You will start seeing it more. There are people who have told me that they're living in tents in their backyard. There's somebody living in my neighborhood in a tent. There's people who have told me that their grown adult children with degrees are living in their basement at home. There's people living in campers and driveways. This is happening, and if you don't realize it, you are naive. We are not handling the problem. The city is not working for everybody who wants to live here. We have a problem, and it is on you, and it is all the elected officials to fix this problem. I also speak for the Alliance for Cultural and Ethnic Harmony. We will again next month host a forum about the affordable housing issue in this community. We will focus this time on giving an update on what is going on, and then we will also bring a call to activism. It is time to get the people in the city who are being bled dry, the people who are carrying this burden, this heavy weight of paying too much to live here, to start speaking up, to start moving, and to start doing something. But it was said last week by your city manager, when all of this comes to an end, when the studies are done, you need to say yes. It is time for housing. It is time for housing in my backyard. It's time for housing in my neighborhood. It's time for housing in this city, and it's time for housing on 36th Street because it's the ideal location for people to live. It is moments from a school, within a mile or two from several parks, near shopping, near hospitals, near employers. We need housing. We need smart density in the city, and we need you guys to act because there are people hurting, and it is partly this council's fault. Thank you.
Thank you, Nettie. Anyone else?
How you doing? My name is Sherrod Smith, 560 College. I'm just here to basically state, basically I see the signs out and it says immigrants are blessings, and I'm starting to feel like an immigrant, not a citizen. So it's just, basically I just feel targeted in this neighborhood, basically, well, in this community. But I'm from Chicago, so I learned to deal with certain things, and I just feel certain ways in this community. But I love my community and just want to let you guys know. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I wasn't really planning on speaking tonight, but I heard the First Lady speak, and her concerns are concerns that I've had also, so I just want to stand up and support her comments. I don't know the history, so I'm not going to point any fingers or anything, but housing for people in this lower incomes around here, really, really hard to come by. Like her, the numbers that were used in the study session, I'm way over the 30%, and it's because I have to be. Either that or I'm going to have to go live down south someplace. And it's just, everybody talks about affordable housing, and when they're doing the calculations, it seems like everybody calculates 2 people working. In this day and age, divorce rate's over 50%. How many households have 2 people working? And if there are 2 people working, then they're forced to stay together because they're in a relationship where one can't afford to move out. And it's something that the council needs to look into and find a way. Nobody wants it in their neighborhood, but we need some lower income housing. Maybe do without the garages and fancy things like that and dishwashers, stuff like that, but there's got to be a way to do it. And one other thing I've been thinking about is problem with the homeless people. Well, I think the main thing there is we need to keep in mind, these are people. They're not just a problem. I mean, granted, some of them have made some bad mistakes financially, drugs, whatever, to help get them in that situation. But they're not just a problem, they are people. And they need to be treated a little better than just police pushing them from one neighborhood to another and hoping they'll go away, because they're not going to go away. Their families are here working the jobs that you folks are working hard to get in. They're going to be here, they're going to get more of them, and we need to find a solution. I don't know what the solution is, but you folks are all smart, and hopefully you can find a way to work with people and get some answers. But anyways, just wanted to support the lady and say she has valid points. We cannot afford to live here.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm
sir?
sorry, Robert Holmes, and I live at 1180 Matt Urban Drive, 49423.
Thank you, sir.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address council? Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. And then we move on to the city manager, community neighborhood services. We want to talk about the resolution to approve a contract for the sale of 285 West 36th Street and authorize execution of the contract subject to contingencies and closing documents. We would like to start this with public comment rather than a staff report. So if you would like to address this decision, then this is the time to talk about this. And again, give us your name and address, and then you have 5 minutes. Green is go, yellow is 1 minute left, and red means your 5 minutes are up. This will be the one time to address council about this issue for the audience in this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Robin Clay. I live at 292 Chatham in Pioneer Village. And I want to thank the speaker who just left, but I also want to apologize to you on the council for the guff you've gotten regarding projects like this one on 36th. I think your integrity, your intelligence, and your researched facts have been ignored about the housing needs and housing potential in Holland. It's embarrassing to read and hear the same inaccurate claims being made in the press and in person by opponents of this project on 36th Street. I commend you for staying the course and not bowing to unfounded claims. Please keep up carefully considering the needs for housing on the part of persons who are now shut out. You make us proud. I expect people to be approaching you in the near future with comments and advice about how to achieve this kind of community involvement in increasing housing. Housing issues can be treated as problems or opportunities. You are taking the most important approach, one of opportunity. Housing offers us opportunities to uphold the values of a community of immigrants and collaboration across differences to achieve remarkable outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Bob Johnson, 314 West 35th. When the RFP was issued, one of the things that came out, and I studied it, was the fact that it was pointed out that Holland needed 1,700 new residences a year for 5 years. That would be 15,000 people in 5 years. That's fatally flawed, because actually that information is for all of Ottawa County, not Holland. But that's what our people in city planning put forward to enforce, to do this RFP. It's a lie. It's just improper information. And I'm not saying that we don't need housing of this type. I'm just saying that it's never going to be what they say that is. All of Ottawa County, I'm sure. But the places where there's growth taking place, or places up near GVSU, over towards Grand Rapids, it's not in Holland. If you look at the growth, it's about 45 families a year. That's not much. I've watched this whole thing because I'm interested in it. I'm a product designer, industrial designer, and I always studied quote-unquote affordable housing. Quite honestly, it was mass-produced housing when we started this in 1966. I've looked at things as using 20-foot containers and how you turn those into housing. I think that's just fascinating. But what I've also watched is, I watched 159 South River, proposed as city housing, and it was voted down. And within several months, what happened? Wealthy people from South Shore Drive turned that into housing I sure can't afford. That's their plan. $300,000, $400,000, I couldn't live there at all. I think it's an interesting use for it, but there's no affordable housing conform to that. Then I watched 254 South River. The original plan was to make that affordable housing. But that was voted down because the people in Wisconsin couldn't get the funding. I called them to talk about that, and they didn't want to talk about it. So now I understand Dennis Ellens has bought that property. And I also understand that to do what he needs to do, he needs the Park Theater to do it with. And that the city's putting pressure on the people at the Park Theater to either sell it or to upgrade to code. Well, that's an interesting process. Then there's Ted Street in Jefferson. When they built the Jefferson School and redid that, my understanding is that Jubilee Ministries wanted to put in low-income housing. And the neighbors objected to it. And I understand they almost beat Mr. Peters' door down, even though he didn't have much to do with it. So what did we end up with there? We ended up with housing that's a lot more expensive than what I can afford. Does it fit the neighborhood? I love it. It's really well done. So then I looked at the next one. My understanding is the Prince family offered property on Waverly, and that was supposed to be Third Coast. And the participants would be Good Samaritan and Jubilee. But there were some problems there. The builder who would have built the property was expected to take all the liability, or the majority of the liability, in a very short profit margin. So what does Third Coast do? Third Coast is the visible group that would do the development and hold some of the liability. But what does it do? It shelters Jubilee, and at that point, Good Samaritan, from liability. It's pretty common. It's done around this country. So then I come to the Woods. And it's a pretty interesting situation. We've looked on the Woods as a place for people to go and enjoy themselves. Andy McKinnon came here and didn't say about, when the question was taken, what would it take to maintain the Woods? Because he'd probably been prompted by Mr. Van Beek. And my point is that Andy McKinnon knows the number of projects that have been done by Boy Scouts as Eagle projects at Van Raalte, the orienteering course, building bridges over there, clearing woods, and the same at DeGraff, building walkways, building a bridge over that swampy area. I stood my knees up to my boots, building a bridge there with an 18-year-old kid and two of his friends. That still exists. So he knows that there are people who would do things as part of Eagle projects at no cost to the city to turn that into a viable process. Somebody, within a week of the RFP coming out, somebody who I've gotten to know in this town, we have a mutual interest that has nothing to do with the city, it has something to do with automobiles, cars, and airplanes, told me this is a done deal. What this is this is the city, and they're going to throw a bone to these low interests, low income groups. They'll throw them a bone by selling the Woods. But there's a man sitting in this room tonight who is very old. He's lived here a long time. They made a comment
Madam
When
Mayor,
that
that is
woods
5
was
minutes.
In 75,
Sorry, sir.
that was city property, it was not city property, and he told the city to sell it, he'd sell it to them if it would never be developed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Mary Johnson, and I live at 672 Larkwood Drive. I'd like to thank City Council for committing yourselves to a long, drawn-out process for the possible selling of the woods at 36th Street. We're talking about a loss of old-growth forest, and the city has little land available to develop. So exercising extra care to ensure that the proposed development is done well is appropriate and appreciated. I'm also excited that Third Coast Homes, a collaboration of two nonprofits with a great track record, has stepped forward with a thoughtful proposal. At a recent study session, Wayne Klomparns encouraged his fellow members of City Council to do their best to accommodate concerns raised by neighbors of the woods. Admittedly, petitions opposing the proposed sale have been submitted. Today I flipped through the petitions, which are online, and I counted 11 from 36th Street, 15 from Pioneer Village, and 25 from the area west of the woods. That adds up to 51. I should have been counting signatures, and maybe I would have got the 59 that's asserted. At any rate, I'm puzzled as to why the people to the west would be so upset. The city has asked for a 35-foot buffer of forest to the west. I'm also puzzled by the opposition from Pioneer Village. According to my calculations, the density in terms of housing units per acre proposed by Third Coast Homes is similar to the density of Pioneer Village. In a July 14th opinion column in the Sentinel, one of the petition signers pointed out the potential traffic problems on 36th Street and the environmental harm caused by the loss of old-growth forest. He ended his column by asserting that the proposed development would ruin 3 neighborhoods. Ruined? Also, I don't have the right to put words into the mouth of the columnist, but I can't help but wonder why he wasn't concerned about all 4 nearby neighborhoods. Is the excluded neighborhood the low-income housing to the south? Is the prospect of mixed income development bothering some of the opponents? To this I say, our community is stronger and richer when everyone is welcome. My experience is that when I am exposed to people who are different from me, I am the richer for it. I grow from it. Moreover, as been pointed out tonight, our greatest housing need is for units that are affordable to people with modest incomes. Providing people with affordable housing is a key to helping them survive and thrive, and this helps us all. So I really hope that you use this opportunity to make a small dent in the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Rosemary Stevenson, 813 Millbridge, Pioneer Village. I'm going to make this really short. I've spoken at probably every council meeting. It is not puzzling at all as to why Pioneer Village is so opposed. We are elevation-wise 3 feet below this immediately adjacent property that has trees with roots that absorb tremendous amounts of water. And we were built in 1985, which means we have old underground infrastructure. And we are very concerned that with a major disruption of 3.5 acres of terrain immediately adjacent to us, ripping out those trees, which is going to rip out the roots, which God knows what's going to do to, the infrastructure underneath. We're very concerned with flooding. We're very concerned with other problems that, 5 years down the line, city comes to us with an assessment to fix the underground piping. Now, we have talked about this a number of times. I'm just saying it one more time. It's not at all puzzling. Anybody who's followed this, you can't just read one article and then come here and talk and think that you know what this whole story is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
My name is Del Steckety. My residence is 332 West 35th Street. I'm the first house off the northwest corner of the woods. Back in the early 80s, I was looking for a lot to build my dream house. I found the lot on 35th Street, but I was concerned about what the wooded area was zoned. After checking, I found it to be zoned R1. That relieved my concerns. I bought the lot, built my house based on any future development for the woods to be R1 single-family residential. Do not go with a proposal that would require higher density zoning. R1 would allow 8 single-family houses. The proposal being considered is 19 units to be squeezed on what's left after a 35-foot buffer strip along the west property line, a 20-foot buffer strip along the north side, and a 40-foot easement along the east side of the property. Habitat can afford to build houses with money, donations, and donated labor. This site does not make affordable housing. New storm sewers are not affordable. New roads are not affordable. Direct underground electrical service, not affordable. Site water retention, not affordable. Cutting down trees for 19 units, not affordable. Habitat for Humanity and Jubilee Ministries are going ahead with a 10-unit condominium project at 60 East 40th Street. The city must make sure that the developer has the finances to develop a project. Does Habitat/Jubilee have the money and the means to run 60 East 40th Street and a project at 285 West 36th Street at the same time? Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you, Dell.
Good evening, all. This gets to be a pretty usual thing. So this is the top 5 reasons why you should vote no tonight. Number 5.
Excuse me, we need your name and address. I know it's.
Randy Betcher.
Thank you.
277 West 36th Street.
Thank you, Randy.
Number 5. It's a done deal. Here we are, the final coup d'etat for Keith against the citizens of Holland. There's not a lie that Keith won't tell to get this deal done. This done deal done. As an example, I sent a FOIA request to find out who moved the woods from a property for sale to a project for development without proper notification. The answer came back as no one knows. But Keith knows, he just won't tell the truth. Number 4, no real plan. Jubilee Ministries and Third Coast don't even have a real plan. Every time they show up, it's with a new make-believe smoke and mirrors plan. Is it 39 homes? Is it 29 homes? Is it 19 homes? Or maybe even 59 homes? And then they think they're going to sell these mini homes on mini lots for $220,000 plus association fees. You call that affordable housing? You know, nobody's going to buy them. Number 3, ethics and integrity. Councilman Trethrui and Councilman Byrd are in a race to see who can tell us the most times that this done deal is all above board. You can always tell the guilty ones, as they are the first to confirm the lie. Number 2, Holland leaders equal fake news. Keith and his able-bodied fake news sidekick, Jenna Ellswick, continue to spout fantasy lies about 15,000 new residents in the last 4.5 years. Just where are the 6,600 families who are in Holland waiting for housing units to be built? Where are these homeless camps? This is one more part of Keith's make-believe world of a done deal. Another FOIA request came back that the city has no knowledge of any population increase. Keith, your own staff won't even support your lies. So that's our great city manager. But the number 1 reason is 59. The only part of this done deal that isn't a lie, isn't a fantasy, isn't make-believe, and isn't fake news is the 59 signed petitions from the people you work for, who live around the woods who have said, leave our woods alone. Save our old growth trees, vote no. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Randy.
Hi, my name is Brian Klaus. I live on 937 Songbird Lane, and I'm directly west of the woods. And I'm just going to start out by saying thank you for a lovely town to live in. I'm from the east side of the state originally, came to Hope College 30 years ago, and then all 4 of my kids went to Hope College as well. Love the city. I choose to live here, and I thank you for that. That being said, I live on the west side of the property, and my opinion on what you do there really doesn't matter. It's your property. I believe I live in America. You guys are hired, or excuse me, not hired. You're elected to do your job. You'll do your homework. You'll do it with the property, I hope, with what is best for Holland, Michigan. I am late to this party because I got a letter in the mail saying the property is being developed. And like I said, I probably have the biggest board of that whole property. And I love looking at the woods, but it's not my woods. End of story. That being said, you don't really want to know my position on affordable housing, but I'm just going to let you have some of it. I think this is a social issue with a lot of emotion, and you can't make your decisions based on emotion. You got to look at facts and do what's right for the greater good of people. I do volunteer. I work in ministries. I have for years. That being said, when you rub elbows with people, get to know people, I've had homeless people live in my home. I've had people that needed homes live in my home for months at a time free of charge. And I am not stereotyping. I am not pigeonholing. I'm not saying that everyone is like this, but in my best opinion that I've had working with multiple people, a lot of times there's budget issues, discipline issues, and things like that, that I feel it's not government's job to fix. That might be the cold, hard truth, but I think that one of the bigger problems faces society in general today is that people don't like to hear the word no. And you may have to say no to me, which that's great, build something there. But I would also hope that you would look at some of the people that are emotionally saying that I need a home here, and say that's not our job. As an employer, I can tell you I can't find employees. It's not because they don't live here. And I also can tell you that a lot of employees work 29 to 30 hours a week on average, and I've had a lot of them, and that's their choice. And if you give, in my opinion, it's just my opinion for whatever it's worth, when you apply things like affordable housing, you remove need. And need has always been my number one generator for me to get it myself. That's just me. That's my 2 cents on that. But again, thank you for a beautiful city. Love living here. I choose to live here. All 4 of my family members choose to live here. And I do know that, I hate to break the news to some people, things are very affordable here compared to Traverse City, where one of my family members live, or Lansing, or any other area in this state. And I'm sure you all know the Forbes article that said that we're a very good city to do business in, which we are. That being said, this is a national average, 1,200 cities. They were 1148 cost of living for a 2-bedroom home. We're at 840, I think the number was. And that's just one article. But you guys have done the homework, and I'm sure you'll make the right decision, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brian.
Hello, Mike Orzum, 265 West 36th Street. I actually live on 36th Street, and this is where the problem arises for me. Not a very wide street. I've talked about this many a times. It's the only way to get from Washington Avenue or from any public street to the woods, which I was told when I moved there 37 years ago, was a bird sanctuary. That the city designated that as a bird sanctuary because they could not build on it because they did not have the proper access to build anything there. Now, when I moved there, the guy that lived next door Dave Von Inns, which I believe is the original house on that street. And he says, that's not a street. He says, that was my driveway. He said, that's not a city street. Now, whether that's changed in between or not, I can't say, if it was incorporated or bought or sold or whatever. But, you know, there was no reason for this old guy to lie to me. There's absolutely no reason. We have a gentleman sitting in the back there that's lived there, I want to say 50, 60 years. You know, it's just going to change the whole neighborhood. You know, 4, 5, 6 houses maybe down there. The street could handle that traffic maybe without. It's gonna make it. I wouldn't say tough, but it's something that we're not used to. Everybody that moved there, one of the reasons they moved there was because it was a dead-end street, and it's quiet. And you know, and it's just. When I heard about this in April, I heard about it like 4 hours before the meeting. And I'm just like, wow, what's going on? What are we sneaking something in here? I didn't hear nothing. I didn't got nothing in the mail. You know, and I thought, well, why is that? The other thing that bothered me is the other proposition for the land adjacent to it to the south for, and then he had a whole thing, and he had an entrance that would go through his property that would make it so you could have 2 entrances. But he says, oh, only for emergency, that it would be blocked off and the fire department or whatever would have to key. And I talked to that gentleman outside after that meeting that day. He says, well, why don't you just open that up? And, you know, that way there'll be 2 entrances. It's going to alleviate the traffic. And he looked at me and he says, well, I don't want all of that traffic to bother my tenants, my people that I rent to. And I went, boy, isn't that really nice of you? What about the people on 36th Street that have lived there? And they're hopefully are going to stay there. I don't know. Some people are talking things, but and I just think that 19 I think was the last count that I heard to put down there. 19 residences, 19, and I just don't see it. You're going to have to do something with the road then if you're going to put that much traffic down there. The only place that you're going to do is, they tell me, is you can only go on the north side of the road because the road isn't in the center of the right-of-way, which I kind of think is kind of weird. But you get down to the end of the street there, you know, Moose Construction is practically on the road. On the north side, there's a whole line of trees, curbs. You know, I just don't see you people or whatever West Coast or Third Coast or whatever coast they are on that going to do this. How they're going to do this and bring the infrastructure in there and pay for it without Mr. Tax Assessor is going to come and talk to us on 36th Street and say, well, hey, we want you to pay. And probably those people that are living down there will probably get a tax break. Not extra fair as far as I'm concerned, but, you know, if you guys want to go ahead and do this, I predict that you'll be sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Mark Walkers, 312 West 35th Street. I had something written out, but most people have eloquently said most of what I want to say. My first thought in talking to you tonight is I'd really like to advocate that you just step back, walk away, say, return this to the current use of the property. It's a breath of fresh air. It's a great place to wild animals to hang out, is probably the best use for it. But I don't like to use this word, but I don't trust you to make that decision. I see possible that you're inclined to develop it, to try to push some of the emotional buttons that we've heard tonight of satisfying some sort of affordable housing. I really doubt that if you polled the folks that tell you they need affordable housing, that they're going to be able to afford this development. But I really would advocate the developer that we're talking about is not profit-based. They have a fantastic mission. I applaud their mission. They're trying to provide a niche market piece or inventory for the city of Holland. I think that's awesome. I don't think this is the right place, but if you decide it is, I'd ask that you please hold them to R1. There's no benefit to them to selling a duplex versus a single family. You're just asking a probably first-time homeowner who's got plenty of pressure and plenty of new things to do to suddenly be a first-time landlord as well. I think that's way too much. I think it's going to increase the likelihood that this project can go sideways as the years go on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Eric DeHaan, 284 West 36th Street. Like I said here, I mean, I've heard it, everyone wants it R1, it seems like, a good amount, or they don't want it at all. I moved in my house right next to the woods about a year ago, and I think that was the 4th or 5th house we bid on. And, I mean, from what I've talked to a lot of my friends and stuff, same situation, make about the same amount of money, it's the same thing. There's not that many houses in that price range, and I mean, might not seem like there's that many people trying to buy houses. There's a lot. I mean, if you're going to develop it, probably be a good idea to keep it, between 100 to 170 range. Probably not duplexes. Most people I'm talking to are trying to buy actual houses. Not condos, not houses, anything like that. They want a single family house. That's my say. I mean, 19, I don't know how many you can fit on that lot. If it's single family houses on quarter acre lots, I could see maybe 6. Like originally what everyone was saying, it was R1 development. But I know it's really your guys' choice, so we'll see. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public comment section for the public hearing, and then we move to staff. Keith, could you introduce this for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. We have had no shortage of study sessions upstairs and here on this, so I would only like to point out a few things, and I think Matt, you want to go to a couple of the slides on here. First, just to orient everybody, we are looking at information that's been in their packet. The first thing is the most recent submittal. So that is the area that we're looking at, and that's the most recent submittal that was put in by the one RFP proposal that we have left. Next, I'd just like to point out with the next slide, as we've pointed out several times, that this marks a point in the process where, should council decide to approve, and that's your decision tonight, that these are all of the boxes in the process that would need to be followed before anything would be potentially approved to be built there. So where we are at in the process is we're not even at the point in the process where any other development, any other piece of property in the city has started. So if a purchase agreement would be approved by the council tonight, then a developed plan would need to be submitted to the city, to city staff, go through all of the departments that we've described, and then would go through the full planning commission process. And I will point out also that as a requirement of the RFP, that there are at least 2 additional sessions that the developer would need to go through within the neighborhood. The final thing that I'd like to say or point out is just that, as we pointed out in the last study session, that generally I would say that there's 3 options available to council. And we have the first one prepared for you. It was in the RFP document that you could choose to approve the contract for the sale of 36th Street, authorize the execution of the contract to Third Coast Homes for the $138,000 that they submitted that to, subject to contingencies and closing documents. One of those contingencies is obviously that it would need to successfully go through the Planning Commission process. The second option that you have would be to deny the contract to Third Coast Homes, but then instruct staff to sell the property without following an RFP process, and strip out, as we talked last time, strip out some of the things that we added into the RFP, and basically allow someone to buy it and develop it as is without the additional things that you submitted to us and that we included in the RFP, such as the buffers that we added into the property. And then the final option that you do have is that you could reverse the decision that you made on April 17 earlier this year. That really kicked off this process, and there was process before that meeting also, to declare this as a surplus property. So I believe those are the 3 options that council has tonight, and certainly myself and other staff are available to answer questions of the mayor or council. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. So do we have a motion from council? Moved by Peters.
Support.
Supported by Garcia. Any discussion?
Comment.
Oh, yes, Quincy.
Normally, I don't speak first. We've dealt with a lot of conversation regarding this, but I want to speak first, and I want to address Randy Boucher. Is that how you say your last name?
It's
Betcher. I really don't appreciate you coming here and stating and putting my name with "I'm a liar." I don't appreciate that at all. The only thing that I am in a rush to do with Mike Trethui, and I really don't know if he's going to address you, but I am. That's the only thing I'm in a race with him for, is to address you and tell you you're way out of line. Way out of line. It was mentioned that we had 2 different affordable housing projects that came to City Council. One was voted unanimously, I won't say unanimously, I don't remember the vote, but it was approved. One was not approved by council. The one that was approved by council ended up falling by the wayside because of something out of our jurisdiction. The 2 projects that came to those 2 different locations did not come to council. They went to the Planning Commission. So that's out of our hands. We have nothing to do with that. We have a meeting every year annually that you guys are all invited to, every last one of you. It's posted, it's on our website, it's on our social media pages. That's our planning session every year. Every year we do that. We had a group, we had a total of 54 objectives that we wanted to take care of this year, 54. Out of the 54, we had 4 categories: connecting with stakeholders, financial, service and livability, and organization. Out of those 54, number 2 was to grow our tax base. Number 6 out of that 54 was housing policy abatements, to include also affordable housing. So This isn't something that we just flippantly decided we're going to do. This is something that we planned to do back in January. That was our planning session. So even going before January, we were wanting to do this, but we put it on paper in January. So there's 19 units at this facility or at this location. That covers growing our tax base, and that covers our housing policy and abatements, including affordable housing. Now, I love Holland. And Brian Lynn talked last week about some houses that have been built a long time ago, and those people still live in that house. Their family has grown, and it's just an elderly couple living there now. If those houses flip, then we get more money based on the market rate for the sale of that house, which will grow our tax base as well. But we are not there right now. So if we build houses, that's going to help you as constituents in this community to have better services. And that's one of the things that makes Holland great. So instead of a couple of people, a handful of people, let's say 10 people doing a service, and they're stretched to the limit because we don't have the money to get more people to work and do that service, this may allow us to do that, which in return, you get a better service from the City of Holland. Our process has been addressed. City manager just went through a little bit of that on the slide. We have not hid this. The RFP was put in place specifically to make sure that we had involved the community. I spoke with someone earlier last week, and now I'm starting to understand and see. I think where we failed is stating that we are going to do something here, or I think if we would have said we are going to build here and say, hey, will you help us define this? Maybe that would have been better. And then maybe we wouldn't be called liars. Also, I've heard a lot about Save Our Woods, the green, we have to save the green space. I want to clarify or restate or repeat that this parcel of land is less than 0.5% of the green space that we have here, the wooded green space that we have here in the City of Holland. 0.5%, less than that. And to change gears a little bit, at one time I was in a really, really rough situation. Some of you have heard my story before. I had to call the city mission to see if they could house me. 2 different times in a very short span of time in 2008. Wasn't that I was lazy or couldn't do it or anything like that. I couldn't find employment, so I didn't have money coming in. And wanted to, but that was a hard bullet to swallow, to call the city mission to see if they could help me take care of my family. Fast forward, I ended up being introduced to this great nonprofit called Habitat for Humanity. In that relationship, they built me a house, and that's the house I currently live in. And I'm very, very thankful for that organization and so many nonprofits in this community that come to the aid of people who need help. And for not just nonprofits, but for individuals like you, and I'm sorry, I do not remember your name, but people who are willing to help other people who are in need, regardless of if it's self-inflicted or not. Those are big shoulders. So I commend you and commend the nonprofits who have done that. I wanted to give back to Habitat for Humanity. So I was asked to join the board of directors, and I gladly accepted that because they made such a huge difference in my life. And this brings me to the end of my comments, but because of the facts that I live in a Habitat home, and because of the fact that I was on the board of directors for Habitat, I was asked to recuse myself from this discussion, and I was asked to recuse myself from this vote. And I'm going to let our city attorney address that for you. And before he does, I'm a little heated, and I'm sorry that it comes off that way, but I honestly want to thank every individual. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on this, that have taken their time to come to each and every meeting, to give input, and I want you to know that we honestly listen to you guys. We honestly listen to you. But our goal isn't just 36th Street and the people who live there. Our goal is the whole city. And we have to look out for the whole city and do what's best for the whole city. And so from those comments, I'm sure you know where I stand. Thank you. Ron?
Ron, would you be willing to address that question?
Sure. The issue that Councilman Byrd brings up is whether he has a conflict of interest that would prohibit him from voting on the issue.
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I just don't have it close enough. The issue that Councilman Byrd brings up is whether he has a conflict of interest that would prevent him from voting on the issue before council or to participate in the discussion even. And a conflict of interest under Michigan law would be something that would affect his position financially, would affect relatives financially, or business that he's involved in financially, or affect the value of his property. And as I understand it, Councilman Byrd's no longer on the board for Habitat for Humanity.
That is correct.
When was the last time you were on the board?
A year and a half, at least.
Okay, so not during the time that council's been discussing this purchase offer. And it has no financial connection to them, so I would not see there being any conflict of interest.
Thank you, Ron. I think Mike has a point of order.
Yes, I have a point of order here. According to the recommendation, and I just lost my computer, there were 3 items. Right there in front of me. Approve the contract, deny the contract, or reverse. The motion did not state which option you were going for, so we need to have clarification on that.
I would move we approve the contract for the sale of 285 West 36th Street. Very close home. Subject to contingencies of both.
The first option. Right. And who seconded? Garcia, would you second that?
Yes, second.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we're back on track. Jay had comments.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I appreciate full well the passion that's in this room right now. I grew up, when I was in 7th grade, I grew up on 9th Street, and somebody decided to make 9th Street a 3-way street. Now we all know what 9th Street looks like. When I lived there, it was a beautiful, old, historic street. Bad time to get a coughing attack. Then I lived on 11th Street, and a developer bought 11th Street, or bought Washington School. He had this great idea to make 32 units on a bunch of parking spaces, take all that green space away. Thank you. Take all that green space away and wasn't at all what the neighborhood wanted, so we got together, we worked it out, and we ended up with something that I thought, that I think everybody would say now is a pretty good thing. So behind me, I've got a lifelong experience of living in Holland in two areas that were drastically changing. Both of them, I went into them thinking this is the end of the world, and both of them turned out to be not the end of the world. I would say this. We all have our own things up here, and there may be a perception that we don't always click on all cylinders, and that's true. But one thing that isn't true is the city manager has a lot of faults. I've seen most of them, but one of them isn't lying, and one of them isn't cheating. And I wouldn't stand for that. I don't think there's anybody behind this diet would stand for that. So to eliminate that kind of tension in the room, I don't think it adds much to the discussion. So then it comes down to facts. The facts is, we did something about 2 years ago and said, where's all the property we own because we need housing? Fact is, that's a pretty attractive lot. Do I want to tear down that woods? No. But do I have to assess the value of tearing down that woods versus what we have to decide is what's in the best interest of the 334,000 citizens in the city of Holland? That's our job. I think we went out of the way to do an RFP to make sure that the developers had some parameters, to make sure that when we did find a buyer, that they knew that there's a neighborhood there and we want to be as sensitive as we can be. Last week we had a discussion on regional housing, and I would be the first to admit the numbers that Bob, that you talk about are confusing. We talk about Holland housing, we talk about the greater Holland housing, we talk about the greater Macatawa area housing, we talk about Ottawa County housing. I can't speak to any of that. All I know is the people I talk to, we have a serious housing problem. And it's not just low-income housing or housing that has to be adjusted so that people who have entry-level jobs can afford to live here. It's every angle of housing. We need it all. I think we're working on that. So I guess for me, the need for housing and the way the city has gone about it, the two people, the Third Coast homes, essentially made up of Jubilee and Habitat, have histories in this community of doing it well. If we sell them this property, the process really begins. They're on record to say, we're gonna work with the Canadian, we're gonna bring them in, we're gonna talk to them. I only hope that we don't pass kind of this air of this is gonna be the worst thing in the world, and you just go right to their meeting and start over again. Because, you know, I do think that if we go into that with an attitude of it's gonna happen, there's a good chance it's gonna happen, so let's make it work. I've got 10 new homes. I lived in my house for 30 years with a softball field and it was a big park, beautiful thing. It's like, oh my God, they're gonna do what? But you know what? They built 10 brand new homes there, and they're really nice. And since then, I met a lot of nice people. And all of a sudden, I'm realizing that it's not as bad as everybody thought it was gonna be. I can't lay that on you and say that's what's gonna happen. But I hope we can walk away from this understanding that right or wrong, good or bad, sometimes when we sit up here, it's one of the hardest decisions for me is when you affect people's neighborhoods, because we have to do that once in a while. I really hope that this negative kind of fear of negativity doesn't impact our ability to get together, begin the process now. Talk to Jubilee, talk to them, talk about what we could do there, talk about how it could beautify your neighborhood. There's a good chance it's gonna increase your property values. There's a good chance that road will be improved. And 2 years after all everybody's in and everybody's happy, we're gonna be having hamburgers, and it's just gonna be more people living in your neighborhood. I know that may be hard to think now, but that's how I'm envisioning it, and that's why I made the motion, and that's why I'm gonna support it tonight. It's just purely a case of when I sit up here and we had to make decisions for everybody, I think we need to have some housing there, and the need for that outweighs my desire to not develop that property and save your woods. But you know what? The facts are the facts. The city owns the property. So that's That's my way of looking at it.
Thanks, Jay. Anyone else? Wayne?
Okay, thank you. There's a lot I could say, and maybe the less said, the better. I totally disagree with my two colleagues who supported this program. I have incredible empathy for the young lady who came with a tent. There are people who are really hurting because of student loans, because of jobs that are low income. We have 40% of the people in our city are struggling. I think we also have to be thinking that we have a city election coming up within about the next 6 weeks, where we potentially have 3 new council members. One at large for sure. It won't be me. It will not be the person, it won't be Brian Lynn. And the mayorship is up as well. It seems to me that it might be reasonable to delay this until we know the makeup of the next 3 people that are going to be sitting up here. I think they needs to have some ownership in this decision. And I think they have some creative ideas. I know them, I trust them, as well as the people I trust on this particular committee. As I see it, this particular thing, and let's try to get the emotional part out of it, and I will really try to. I go back to a time, a couple years ago, we looked at Lot C7 between 6th and 7th Street. There was a developer from Detroit that came and said, we'd like to buy that. We'd like to buy that parking lot. We'd like to build some buildings there. And we went, well, we were rather shocked, and we sort of talked about it, and we said, well, go ahead, well, let's see what you can come up with. They really didn't come back with anything that really developed very far. And then we kind of thought, well, maybe, I think Mr. Peters was one of them who said, hey, maybe we have some other properties in town that when we have a developer come, we can show them here are 5, 6 properties that we would consider. And then we kind of said, well, maybe there's other little bitty pieces. So we had a committee work at it. And we found that we had a lot of little itty bitty pieces. Hope College wanted a little section. We had, a couple weeks ago, we went over that, and we sold a couple of small properties. But there was one on 36th Street that was kind of a lone wolf. I don't think we really even realized how big a property this was until sometime later. And at that time, by that time, it was like, okay, maybe this is something we ought to develop. I don't think it was really necessarily the total intention, at least of some of us, to move ahead so quickly on this. So are we really talking about, I think we're talking about people who are falling in the Alice group, people who are employed but are having difficulty finding homes, versus people who maybe do know how to have a job, a full-time job, et cetera. So I think we're really talking about 2 separate different groups. If you are in the Alice group, you are going to have a really hard time paying for market rate. And so if these are going to be market rate areas up here on 36th Street, it's not going to be really resolving for the affordable homes. It really isn't going to be. We're kidding ourselves. So I think we have to think about that particular thing. I found 2 very interesting articles about green space. And in essence, what they're saying is, if you have green space near where you live, located within about 300 meters, which is about, 3 football fields away, you are going to be much more satisfied with your life, your self-worth, your happiness, and your mental health and your mental capacities. So green space is very, very important. Not only is it important for you as an individual, green space also makes a lot of sense when you're talking about a community. Just a couple of things to think about when you have green space. as well as mental health. It helps protect water. It saves energy because it keeps things cool. There are many, many, many benefits from this. And I think it would be a really big mistake at this juncture to sell this property. I would suggest City Council hang on to this property for at least the next couple of months. Get some new people on board, reopen it again to see if this is something that they are agreeable. I think they have to have some ownership in this as well as the people who are on this. So I would really impair it. It's kind of interesting, we had 59 people who were opposed to this, who live in that neighborhood. 59 people. A couple of weeks ago, we took action on two things. There was one person who came to us and said, I would like to fish down by Holland Park. One person came to us and we said, I think we could work that out for you. Shortly thereafter, there was a person who lives in Holland Heights. They were talking about a stop sign or a yield sign on Haymarket. One person, City Council said, yeah, I think we're okay with that. I think we don't need that. We'll support you on that particular thing. So it's kind of hard for me to understand how we can take 59 people who sincerely believe that this is something that's not in their best interest and say, well, too bad. Also, especially when we have 3 new people coming on. I just don't understand that. I think it's the wrong time, the wrong place. I think we need more people on board, more ideas. So I would certainly ask you to reconsider your thinking, to do 2 steps back, and let this come up again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Anyone else? Raul. Garcia.
Either works.
Yeah.
I definitely want to start by saying how much I appreciate all the comments, and I think firstly, those of my peers. I don't know that tonight anybody's going to be swayed either way. I think everyone kind of has a sense of where they're going to be. Some of them I think are pretty clear already, myself being included in that. So I think you know how I'm likely to vote. No, I'm going to vote. But when I say, kind of echoing some of the comments up here about applauding all of you for participating thus far. I mean, the process is still underway, which is part of the reason I'm going to vote the way that I am. This is only the beginning. But part of the reason that I sit up here, part of the reason that I decided to be a part of this is because I experienced some of this tension, right, between citizens and the city, and part of it is ignorance or not knowing all, like the full picture. Right? One of the things that I've come to understand sitting on this end is that things are a lot more complex, a lot more complicated. They're a lot more dynamic than what it looks like often. And I'm not saying that this isn't clear. I'm not saying that this is really that it is dynamic. I'm not going to say it's not dynamic, because it is dynamic. But I'm not discrediting the research, right, and the investment that you all have put in on either side of this issue. I think for me, ultimately, what it comes down to is I do believe in this situation that we're in with affordable housing and the need. It's not, and a lot of people have different ideas and opinions and kind of perspectives on what affordable housing is and who these clients or these people who need this housing, what they look like. I think you'd be surprised to discover those who need housing that falls under the median income range, right? That 30 to 80% that Habitat works with, and the 80 to 100% or 80 to 120% that Jubilee has a niche for. We need housing all across, right? And some of you have a perception of what all of this has meant for that 36th Street property, and that's been the lens that you've been looking at this through. The there isn't a lot of property or a lot of developments that we have a lot of say in. We do on this property because we own it. And I think we've done what we can to be diligent about including all of the dynamics in this process. And again, it's only the beginning. We haven't even gotten into the development portion of this entire thing. And so I am voting in favor tonight, right, because it'll get us started to then continue to figure out what this thing can look like. And you guys can continue to be a part of that in a way that hopefully makes this the best case scenario for all neighbors, those immediately right next to the woods, and those of the greater city. Thank you.
Thanks, Raul. Anyone else? David.
Well, it's almost 9 o'clock, so we're committed to being here anyway. One of the benefits of sitting on this side of the, whatever you call this, black thing, especially doing it for 16 years, is that you're privy to a lot of different opinions and perspectives and outlooks, and by some cosmic anomaly, every one of them is correct. I know this to be true, but I don't understand how that comes to work out that way, but you know, every opinion is the right one. And also come to appreciate the fact that what at the time seems like a very serious and critical issue, over time, that becomes moderated a bit. I can think of a number of projects over the years. 40th Street, for one, you would have thought the world was coming to an end because we were putting in sidewalks and taking out trees and all manner of things. Well, life seems to be pretty good on 40th Street, as far as I can tell. And several other things like that. So the point of that is I just want to let people know, regardless of what happens tonight, the future is not that dire. Life will go on. Things will be okay. We're not talking about nuclear war. That definitely is a problem. So just keep things in that perspective, if you will. Jay has very articulately spelled out some things that were on my mind, so I'm not going to go over those again. Just a couple of things. We started out, as you've heard, a process some time ago about looking at the property that 59 of you and 33,000 plus some of your fellow property owners own in this city. What their current status was, what they were, what their potential was for development or non-development. Some things have been determined that there's just not much good that can be done with it other than to allow them to be there, and there's an intrinsic value to that. Other properties were large enough, like the property we're looking at tonight, your beloved woods, our beloved woods, that there's potential for. And that was a good process. It involved a lot of dedicated, intelligent, well-meaning, and hardworking people who did the work to come to the conclusions that they put before us in order for us to make sound judgments. On behalf of those 33,307 by the 2017 population status that we are responsible to think about. So I appreciate the fact that this property has become very dear to a number of you. Talking about old growth, I've been a woodworker for most of my adult life, so that sort of piqued my attention. I got to be curious about how old that growth actually was, and I asked if there was any photographs, old photographs of what that property looked like a long time ago. And we did actually manage to come up with a couple. The woods at one time appears to have been an orchard. So I don't know how old that growth actually is, or maybe they were there around the apple trees or whatever. And also where most of you folks live now were pastures, so there may well have been some very upset cows when they saw condominiums going up. Of course, they don't vote, so who cares? So we can debate, you know, the value of affordable housing, what that means, whether we need it. who should be eligible to make it available to themselves of that, who should avail themselves of that. I think reasonable minds will agree that there is a need. And while we can't, as a group here, address every aspect of that or everything that affects the whole issue of affordable housing, there are some things we can do. And what we can do, as Gandhi says, we will try to do. And I think that's what we're about here. I'll end with this. The one positive thing about having the process before us that we do now and that we're looking at. So being city property, doing RFP process as we have done, we have the ability to insert certain stipulations, which we have, like this buffer zone. If we just sold the property for, 4 or 5, half a dozen property owners to build houses, they may have, put an ugly fence right up to the property line, and you get to look at that for the rest of your time that you're there. In this case, we have 20 to 35 feet. Maybe it's not all that much in some folks' minds, but it is a fair amount of space to buffer between that development and what you're enjoying now, which is a lot more than occurs in a lot of other developments. So it's not a perfect world by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a very good effort given all the considerations that we're looking at. I'm going to support the motion that was made because I think looking at the city as a whole, all 33,000+ folks, and the benefits that this brings, at least a portion of them, I think the benefits outweigh any negative aspects. So I appreciate the participation. I know we say this a lot and it sounds like bunk sometimes, but truly, it's good to know that people are interested in their community and take the time to participate and voice their opinions to us. I know for me it did give me pause to think a number of times. Even got close to the Wayne's thinking, not that close, but kind of. So thank you very much for your participation. It is very important and it's benefited me in this process. Thank you.
Brian.
So I'm pretty torn on the issue at hand because my principles are getting ripped in half, which I don't like. First principle being, I think we're really bad stewards with property that we own that we don't have a purpose for. And so going back to kind of the intent at the beginning was, hey, we have all this extra property that we've accumulated throughout the years for who knows why. It was a great idea some Wednesday night, a long time ago. And we don't do anything with it. And so we're not collecting tax revenue on it. And on top of that, we have to send people out to clean stuff up and take care of it. And so we got a lot of this information. And when it came back, I asked why there was a lot of other stuff not on there that I thought we don't really use well, but everybody up here disagreed with. So I'd sell a lot of parks. Anyways. And so the reason I bring that up is because when we don't have a purpose with what we're doing with a piece of property, we really aren't good stewards in terms of owning that and making it usable and cleaning it up and taking care of it. And so that kind of led to the first vote, which we took, which was basically a question of, hey, do we want to invest and make the woods a park or a nature place, similar to how you'd have a DeGraff type of a thing or not? And as a body, we said, no, it's surplus. So we don't want to take the time to invest and turn it into something like that. That's how I view that vote. And so then we come to this kind of next step in the process, which is, okay, well, if it's surplus, then going back to my point, which we're not very good at being stewards of property that's surplus, let's get rid of it. And where I feel the rub and the other part of my principal piece is we've said, hey, let's get rid of it, but let's have a little bit more control with what happens. And I think that's really where what's brought some of the emotion and the opportunity for confusion into the process, which is if we just put the property up for sale and somebody bought it, we wouldn't be here tonight talking about what's going to happen. There would go through a zoning process. If somebody wanted to get it rezoned, they'd put the building stuff, and all of that's what will happen next if we approve this as well. So it'll still have to go through all of those things. It's just we're being asked to say, hey, do we think that's the right person to develop it or not? Instead of saying, hey, let's just sell the property, which is why I'm super inclined to number 2. But as a group, we've kind of moved into this, hey, we want to, we went through an RFP and we voted as a council to do that. And so we've gone through kind of the steps there. But I think where I'm struggling is it feels a lot like we're telling you that we know what's best. Either way, whether we do or we don't. And that's the piece I'm struggling with. So I empathize a lot with Wayne in terms of wanting to wait, but at the same time, I think in line with a couple weeks ago when you said, hey, let's take some action while we're still on council. I think let's take some action while we're on council. So I think we should vote on it tonight, and we'll let the rest of the colleagues speak. But I'm open to if somebody else has an idea of what that second option looks like.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mike?
There's been a lot said tonight. There's going to be a lot more said. I'm a little cooler and calmer and collected than Mr. Byrd was, but Mr. Porter, you're out of line. Betcher, excuse me. You can disagree, you can trump up facts, you can do whatever you want, but you question my integrity. It is not appreciated. And furthermore, the city manager is far too much a gentleman to defend himself, but I will. Questioning his integrity without fact is above reproach. It is time for us to talk, not you. We've listened to you many weeks with the same facts that you have or that you've accumulated that you believe in. Perfectly fine. That's the democratic process. We can agree to disagree, but when it becomes personal, that's the time it's got to stop. You cross the line. As I was misquoted, I have been on this table, around this table for 23 years, not 30 years. Never said I was. I have been a opponent of high density. The last one that came across was the country club property. Whether it's affordable or not, what it did, and I finally came to realize, yes, we did get a little bit more traffic on Country Club and Legion, but what it did is it also emptied out a bunch of houses in the city area that people were able to move into then. It's the trickle-down effect. My thinking's changing just a little bit. Heights has been overburdened, I want to say, with high density, and unfortunately, back in the day, that was the way we did things. We've gotten a lot smarter since then. Mr. Garcia said something last week that really hit me. We have been talking about affordable housing or housing of any kind, affordable across all the lines. And unfortunately, something else that was misquoted tonight, of the 3 projects, we only voted 1 down. The other one, the state didn't give them the money. We had approved it, and along with the second one, the same thing happened there. Are we actually doing what we're saying we're doing? And I defended that. I said, yes, we were. And I think we would be doing exactly that, what we said is to approve this tonight. Mr. Orzum has been here on many occasions, and I've traveled that road a couple of times, and I fully appreciate where he's coming from. We asked the city engineer if there's something that could be done to make sure that the road width is proper for the neighborhood and for the potential extra traffic. But the bigger concern is, as Mike has said on numerous occasions, is getting out onto Washington Avenue. And I'm going to tell you right now, right turn only is not going to be acceptable. We have to, if this is to come to be, working with a developer, working with the city engineers, working with traffic designers, we have to come up with a better, safer way for that mid-block exit, especially if we want people to live there. Public transportation, the homes that come out of there, whatever the case may be. That's one thing that we need to do. It's a promise. It's something that we need to definitely look into, Mike, and I'm going to do the best I can if this passes, okay? Affordable housing has been definition by a lot of people. And the presentation that we had last week, it comes in all shapes or sizes. And we have heard over the number of years that I've been here, and we have an employer in the back there that said something along the same line, but we've had a lot of employers saying, okay, we can't find employees. And what are the employees telling us? You go to the Chamber of Commerce, you go to some of the larger employers, you go to a number of people. So here's another one. This side says this side says this, okay? Someplace in the middle we'll meet. One of the reasons they can't find employees is because, first of all, part of it, and Mr. Klumparns has said this a number of years, the wages are a little bit low. We're trying to do something about that when tax abatements come. Dave always asks the base question, what's the pay? We're wanting to make sure that they're able to afford these homes. The second thing is if they have to move out of the area because they can't afford this, they can't afford the car to drive in. So we're looking at public transportation. It's a catch-22 no matter which way you look at it. So for the housing needs on all levels, and as I said with the trickle-down effect, we get some empty nesters that are moving into the no-step condo type projects up on Country Club. They've opened up a number of homes. Where those homes are, it could be all over the spectrum. But that trickles down to the people that can afford them. The proposal of meeting people halfway, not giving them a handout, but giving them a chance to invest in their own property, I think is the best of all the worlds. I don't know how we could lose on that. Over all the years, again, and some people said it's been too long, and maybe it has been, but I've come to the realization, and unfortunately, as much as I try, we're not going to make everybody happy. We don't make all of us happy up here, and there's only 9 of us. We have our disagreements, but that's what makes the world go around. And the conversations and the discussions, no matter how heated, no matter how personal they get, yes, I did read every email. Yes, I did listen to every comment. It didn't fall on deaf ears. You need to know that. It's been said many times up here. We appreciate the involvement. I've said it for a number of years, especially up in the Heights. If I want to know where my constituents are, it doesn't take me very long to find out. And I appreciate that. That's what makes this organization, that's what makes this city work. A couple of people have said it, this is a wonderful city. You're doggone right it is. There's a lot of great people that live here, and a lot of great people that want to keep living here. So thank you very much for your involvement. I don't know how it's going to come out. People have been counting heads. I haven't. I've been trying to put my thoughts together. No matter how this comes out, I hope that we can move on, be good neighbors, and support each other. That's the process that I'm hoping and wishing for this city. Thanks again for being here, and thanks again for your comments and involvement.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? This is always a very hard night when you know that a very difficult decision is coming to its end. And you have listened and cared and worked through things. But as Mike said, you ultimately have to make a decision. And people probably won't like you because you made that decision. And I guess, I don't think anybody gets used to that. Everybody wants to please everybody. But it's not possible when you're in a seat like this. And I didn't run for a seat like this to make everybody happy. I knew I couldn't do that. Anyone who's a parent knows you can't make every child happy. Every day can't be happy. Sometimes you have to make decisions that they don't like, because in the long run you're thinking of something else that has a bigger perspective. And I have been through feeling a lot like you have felt. It's very hard. It's your home. It's your comfort. It's your place you go at the end of the day. It's familiar. It's the people you care about. It's the regular rhythm of your life. And it's changing. And that hits us in an unexpected place. It touches our heart. It's tied to emotion. We're human beings. And then it's really hard to control yourself, because you think and do things and say things that maybe looking back, not too excited about. And it's been said already, but it really hurts me when people attack so many people's character that I have a lot of respect for and are really working hard to do their best. That gets emotional for me. I know it's very hard not to go to a level. You just feel ballistic inside. And it's hard not to go to a level like that. But that's a lot of the problem in our country today. So we're having trouble not being ballistic with each other. And that's not Holland, Michigan. We don't want to be that place, even when we feel these emotions, because we will. We won't always agree. And so I hope that however this vote goes, if it goes in a way that you personally don't want, that you can stay engaged in the process, that you can keep helping us and helping those that are going to be designing this project, and stay involved with that, all the different levels that we've put into any kind of project of a piece of property that the city owns. And we want to hear from you. And a lot of projects have done a lot of changing. But the bottom line of not having that whole intact woods could possibly change with this vote. And I hope you understand that nobody came here tonight thinking this was going to be an easy experience. It's kind of the litmus test of, okay, you said you wanted to do this. You were elected to do this. And now you need to do this. And it's a sense of responsibility. And I hope that you can come to a level of trusting that that is why we're making whatever decision we make as a body of 9. Can't control how each other thinks, which is good, because that's democracy. And I know we have students from Hope College here tonight who are learning about government and how it works. And the government is really people, right? It's all different people at all different stages of our lives, in all different situations. And then something happens that rocks our world. And we show up because our world is rocking. And that's good that we have a process that we can do that. And I appreciate, I know everybody said it, but we do. We're not just saying it. We appreciate hearing from you and understanding how you're thinking and what's bothering you and how we can help with this project. So we do start that entire long process if this vote goes through. And I hope that we can stay engaged, and I hope that we can find a level to be able to talk to each other and respect each other and care about each other, because that's really how we make this community work long term. So Kathy, could you call the roll, please?
Corbin,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Klomparns,
No.
Bird,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Trethewey,
Yes.
Lynn,
No.
Mayor DeBoer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Can you read the gifts, please, Kathy?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts. Parks and Recreation, Friends of Van Raalte Farmhouse, in-kind donation values set by the donors. Jan Van Raalte, Twin Baker sleigh beds, $4,000. Adrian Van Houten, repair of feet of Baker beds, $250. Bice Mattress, Mark Dozman, manager, twin mattresses, $670. Mike Lindell, My Pillow, 12 pillows, $600. Dar and Craig Hexel, 2 slipper chairs, $985. Suzanne Leitner Smith, bedroom chest, dining room chest, spinning wheel, $1,100. Cynthia Armstrong, slipper chair, $350. Jean Hampson, field cradle, desk chair, $300. Carolyn Stitch, painting of house and barns, $450. Emily and John Hott, DBK Van Raalte Jr. dining room, buffet and china cabinet, $4,000. Sue and John Hutchinson, chocolate set, fruit set, glass lamp, Vaseline ware, bedroom chest, $1,175. Parks and Recreation, Holland and Bloom program, Merle and Arnola Prinz, $150. Hudsonville Creamery and Ice Cream Company, $500. Hope College, $1,000. Parks and Recreation, Sal Perez Scholarship Program, proceeds from the Labor Day Boardwalk breakfast event held on September 2nd, $1,352.64. Pancake breakfast sales, $1,920. Expenses, $567.36. Gordon Foods, $245.84. Ace Hardware, 4 propane tanks filled, $42.45. Sam's Club, $163.87. Sales tax, $115.20. Public Safety Services, Police Operations, Retirement Gift, donation $448. Public Safety Services, Police Operations, June K-9 Golf Fundraiser, proceeds from the June K-9 Golf Fundraiser event held on June 28th, $10,000, $10,914.97. Donations, $34,905. Expenses, $23,990.03. Net profit, $10,914.97. Human Relations Department International Festival, proceeds from the August 17th event, $490. Marjorie Ammon, $150. The Bridge, $50. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Thank you, Kathy.
Motion to accept with appreciation.
Moved by Trethewey,
Support.
supported by Byrd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. Wow, that was a long list of gratitude, of generosity from people. So now we are on to the approval of our governance framework and process manual. You want to start with Keith? Could you explain that to us a little?
I will answer any further questions that council may have. This is a document that has gone through several drafts and iterations. Last week we had a conversation about it and made some final adjustments to it. I believe that I've captured those adjustments that you asked about and directed. So I am recommending that City Council approve the governance framework and process manual as submitted.
Thank you, sir.
Move approval. Second. Support.
Moved by Lynn, supported by Corbin. Any discussion? Yes, Mike.
Mr. City Manager,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been a year-long process. I want to thank you. I want to thank Ron, city staff that was involved, Dave Miedema that started the process with us. That seems like so long ago, but this was a document that this is a document that will continue to be a living document, working basically how we work together as a council and how we interact with seniors, the city manager, not senior staff, the city manager. The city manager deals with the other employees. I got that right? All right, good.
You're learning.
Took me a while, but I got that right. I'm looking forward to this document and having more conversation on it. We're going to have some reviews at the advance every year and in between. It sets some guidelines and some clarifications that were a little fuzzy in some cases. So again, appreciation goes out to all involved. Dave Miedema for starting us in this process, and obviously you and Ron for taking a look at this and fine-tuning it. Looking forward to its passing.
Yes, and I think it's great that council decided to do it. I don't think it's ever been done before, and this way we have a set framework and we can go back to it and work to understand it, and I'm glad that it could go through all the different iterations with Dave and Keith and Ron to make it fit our charter and the way things work here. So it will be a good document to have. So Kathy, could you call the roll, please?
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Klomparns?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Peters? Garcia?
Yes.
Trethewey?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Mayor DeBoer?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On to the city manager. Would you like to share some thoughts?
I believe it's after 8:30, so I have no comments.
There's a great Alzheimer's walk Saturday morning, and there's also a Recovery Fest at the Centennial Park on Saturday, so it'd be great things to participate in and help people. I'm not going to talk long either, so we need communications from the mayor. We have an appointment to our city board and commission. Ron Price, which I don't have a sheet for. Do you have it? Thank you. Please accept the appointment of Ron Price to the Human Relations Commission for his first full term. That full term expires June 30, 2022. Mr. Price will replace Commissioner Elizabeth Carroll, whose term expired June 30, 2018. So it's recommended City Council approve the appointment of Ron Price to the Human Relations Commission, and that term expires June 30, 2022. You have a motion? Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Trethewey.
Support.
Supported by Hoekstra. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That carries. And one other thing, we have a proclamation because this is Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15 to October 15. So we have this proclamation. During National Hispanic Heritage Month, we recognize the contributions made and the important presence of Hispanic and Latin Americans to the United States and to Holland, Michigan, and celebrate their heritage and their history in our community. And the city of Holland is home to the second largest Hispanic population in the state of Michigan. Our Hispanic and Latino brothers and sisters make up nearly 23% of our local community and 18% of our American population. And whereas we recognize and celebrate our Hispanic community's rich and vibrant traditions of faith, family, hard work, and patriotism, and we celebrate the local contributions of our Hispanic community, whether through nonprofit, for-profit, agriculture, manufacturing, service industries, business, education, healthcare, government, and the many other vital sectors to our local economy. And as a community, we especially address the Hispanic community's contribution to the local cuisine. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of organizations like Latin Americans United for Progress, which was started in 1964 by industrious Hispanic Americans living in the community to promote a better community and future for our Hispanic community. And the City of Holland joins other communities across our nation in honoring the many ways the Hispanic and Latino community contributes to our common goals in celebrating Hispanic culture and in working together toward a stronger and more inclusive future and a more prosperous society for all. And we encourage citizens to participate in the many Hispanic Heritage Month events, including the Tulipanes Latino Art and Film Festival, the Hope College events, including the annual Cesar de Chavez, Chavez Address, and the many events in our region throughout the year to celebrate our Hispanic community. Now therefore, I, Nancy DeBoer, Mayor of the City of Holland, do hereby proclaim September 15 to October 15, 2019 as Hispanic Heritage Month. There you go. Great.
Thank you.
We're moving on to communications from council members besides that. Mike, do you have an appointment for us?
I do.
Thank you.
And I'm going to question my approval here because she sat here all night. We have an appointment for the Max Board for, and if I say it wrong, I apologize. Mika Weiss. Weiss. I was close, half there. To the Mackinac Area Express Transportation Authority Board for her first full term. Said full term expiring June 30 of 2022. Ms. Weiss will replace board member Lucia Rios, whose term expired June 30 of 2019. So I will make that as a motion, and it's not very often that we have the applicant here, so thank you very much. And the director of MAX, Elisa.
Wow.
Thank you very much for being here, both of you, and sitting for 2.5 hours.
Will we approve?
Support.
Moved by Peters, supported by Lynn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. Thank you for your service. So do we have any motions and resolutions from council members? And I guess we're down to one thing.
Motion.
Support. Oh, sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Moved by Trethewey, supported by Peters. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That carries.